Dr. Campbell is an associate professor, teaching stream in leadership for racial justice, teacher education, in the Master of Teaching program at the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education, OISE, at the University of Toronto. He's presently the Teaching and Learning Coordinator and the Coordinator for the Black Future Educators Program. And as of May 1st, 2024, he is the newly appointed Director of the Center for Black Studies in Education. Congratulations. Dr. ABC is known to the OISE and wider community for his leadership on advancing equity, leadership, 2S LGBTQIA+ community, and teacher education. Dr. ABC's exemplary work has seen numerous awards bestowed to him, such as the 2024 recipient of Black History Month Award from the Jamaican Canadian Association, the 2022 Award for Excellence in Initial Teacher Education from University of Toronto, the 2021 Distinguished African Caribbean Award from the University of Toronto, African Alumni Association, 2021 Champion Educator Award from the Ontario Alliance of Black School Educators, and numerous others. Fabulous. He presently teaches courses in anti-discrimination education, leadership, educational change, urban education, and Black educators' identity and pedagogy. He has presented at numerous conferences and has delivered many presentations as a keynote speaker, motivational speaker, and workshop facilitator. He loves people, food, fashion, traveling, and bringing his community together for a good meal. So tonight, Dr. Campbell is joining us to share some learning called Equity Begins at Home as the session for tonight. Inclusion and equity issues in schools are at the top of the conversations today, and there are many workshops and other forms of engagements that target those within schools, for school leaders, classroom teachers, and other stakeholders. However, this presentation is created for community.
Yes.
One of the most needed conversations that we should be having right now. So parents should think about and be aware of their own journey into equity, the accountability needed to erase racism and hate in schools, their role as an ally and friend, their influence and impact as parents and caregivers, and their responsibility to create and sustain an inclusive school environment. So we're thrilled to be welcoming you here tonight, Dr. Campbell, and we'll turn it over to you at this point.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Julie. It's a pleasure to be here, pleasure to be sharing with you. I always love these opportunities to speak to parents and community. But what I always love even more is being able to speak to a school or parents and community after getting the opportunity to speak to teachers and staff. And so I am not new just to the school board, because I've had conversations with the staff already. And that for me is extremely important. I'm happy and honored to be a part of your speaking series. And I know tonight we're looking this evening together. We're looking, you can see my presentation on the screen. And please remember to, Sarah or Julie, be okay to stop me if anything is gone missing from the screen. Wonderful. So thank you so much for having me, for being here in conversation with you. Thinking about inclusion begins at home. This is a topic that I really, really, really love. And I know, as a guest speaker, keynote speaker, I think we'll say we have many topics that we love. But I love this topic because it is so basic. And I use the word basic intentionally because it is something that we all can do. If we look around the world right now and what is happening, there's a lot going on. And there are many of us who disengage from conversations because we don't have the tools, we don't have the knowledge, we don't have the skills. Sometimes we discuss topics that are so important and so strong, but instead what we have done is perpetuate the same issues, or we have allowed ourselves to be be complicit in those conversations, and then we do more harm than good. And the truth is, a lot of educators, parents, community members are I would say, are scared or shy or nervous about having these, what we call courageous conversations, brave conversations, we have different words for these conversations. But so I would start by saying to all the parents, or asking all the parents, what is it that our children should know or should be exposed to? And that's a question that I've heard in many fields as an educator for years, that there are certain topics are reserved for home. There are certain topics that are reserved for school. You'd ask the school to help you. There are certain topics that are reserved for parents or the mother or father. For me, I'm going to tell you what are our courageous topics this evening. And they are surrounding the words such as love, respect, care, empathy, conversations that are empowering and affirming. These are the important conversations we should be having around inclusion and equity. And I know some people will say, well, we want a brave conversation about 2S LGBTQIA+. We want a brave conversation about the war. We want a brave conversation about disabilities and access. We want a brave conversations about indigenous issues and indigenous identity. We want a brave conversation about racism, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism. We want a big conversation about anti-black racism. And I want to say to you, the big conversations you need to have about those issues, they are embedded in love, care, respect, empathy, conversations that are about affirming our identity, and conversations about empowering our children. So if you think of all that is happening around you, think about what would happen in a bullying incident, in a hate incident, in a homophobic incident, in a racist incident, if the persons who are involved were mindful of their role, their responsibility, their power in community when it comes to respect for identity, respect for each other, respect for differences, empathy, love, and care. So that is what I want to underline for us, is that these conversations are important. I'm going to tell you a first story. I was having this very conversation about, let's say maybe 3 years ago, and a teacher shared with me, she went to the supermarket with her son. And she was in the supermarket, in the food store with her son, and her son pointed at an old gentleman and he said, "Mom, that man is old. He's so old." And she rushed to him and she covered his mouth. And I said to her, "Why did you cover his mouth?" I said, "This was an opportunity for you to talk about age, for you to say to him, the beauty of age, the wisdom in getting old, the wisdom in taking care of yourself, and say to him, guess what? Your mom is going to be old one day. Your dad is going to be old one day. Your grandparents may be older one day. And guess who will be old one day? You." So she realized, because she said it to me, I realized, Dr. ABC, after listening to you, that I want you to listen carefully, that I missed an opportunity to have this conversation about ageism with my child. I have a conversation about difference in age. Older, growing wiser, respect for age, respect for older folks. She missed an opportunity. So parents, I want to ask you, how many missed opportunities have you had? Let me give you another example, another story as we get into this conversation. When I was teaching at a elementary school, I was teaching during, some of you remember, the Syrian crisis. So we had a Syrian crisis, and we had a lot of Syrian refugees coming into Canada, into Toronto as well. And my particular school, we had no Syrian refugees in my particular school. However, listen to me carefully, the grade 6 curriculum, the grade 6 social studies curriculum speaks about refugees. The actual word refugee was in it at that time. And so we had a conversation about what's going on in the world, and the topic is actually Canada's response to the world. So when we say to students, we have responsibility as a citizen, as a person, and some parents will say, well, we don't. I actually want to let you know it's in the curriculum. We do. There's a topic we teach in grade 6 that speaks about Canada's response to the world. and we look at world events, hip-hop making events, historical events, and many of these hip-hop making historical world events actually are surrounding matters of inclusion and equity. Right? So we want to talk about, we're having conversation today about war, but there was a time in history where there was needed a strong conversation about the Holocaust, a strong conversation about slavery, a strong conversation about 2S LGBTQIA+, a strong conversation about many issues, but we have to know how do we have them with our children. And so let me give you an example. I was teaching grade 6 at the time, and so we were talking about the Syrian refugee crisis and issues happening with students and children who are refugees. And so we had a great lesson, social studies. Everybody went home. The next morning, one of my really amazing parents came to my classroom door and she said, Mr. Campbell, I'd love to talk to you. And she asked permission if her daughter could be excused from social studies class today if I am going to continue the lesson on Syrian refugee crisis. I was quite taken aback. I was quite concerned. So we started to have a good conversation. Amazing parent. Amazing parent. She didn't come complaining. She came with a concern. And this is our conversation, how we need to have conversation with each other. And I said to her, what is the problem? And she said to me, her daughter came home and she spoke about, what she learned in school today. She talked about what Mr. Campbell, of course, that's me, our teacher, talked about the Syrian refugee. I showed some pictures. I didn't show any video, but I showed pictures, of a refugee camp. Look at where kids are staying. And the idea that these children do not have what we have. They don't have a school. They don't have homes. They don't have meals and lunch and cafeteria and ballet class. They don't have all of this. And we talk about what can we do as Canadian citizens, as persons, as human beings to help with that. First of all, we begin at empathy. And she said her daughter started to cry. So what the mother did, I guess if you'd say mother instinct, she swooped in to protect her child from crying. I want you to listen to me carefully. Now, this child is in grade 6, 11. She came to school the next morning. And when she shared the story with me, I said to her, I am actually absolutely proud of your daughter. I said, I want you to listen carefully. I spoke to your students yesterday. I talked about what's going on in a Syrian refugee crisis. We talk about children around the world who don't have the power and the privilege and the access that we are sharing today. And your child's response was empathy, compassion, and tears. I said, your child did exactly what I wish everybody would do. She looked at me. She was shocked. I said, your daughter responded to a refugee crisis with empathy, love, care, and concern. That is absolutely what we want everyone to respond to. You can't teach that. As good as I am as a grade 6 teacher, I couldn't teach that. That is something we have to nurture. We have to inculcate something in your home, something in your conversation as a parent in the years, not because Mr. Campbell taught social studies on a Thursday afternoon, but something in your home as a parent, something around the dining table, something the way you interact with the world. When your child saw that, she was moved with compassion, she was moved with care, and that made her sad. Ask yourself, as a parent listening to me, what would be your child's response? Would it be a snicker? Would it be a laugh? Would it be a tease? Because these are realities that happen in school. When your child is supposed to respond to hurt and pain, we have kids who are laughing at that. So when I say inclusion begins at home, when I say equity begins at home, when I say care begins at home, I want you to understand where I'm coming from and the power you have in your home. So on the board, on the slide, you're seeing a box of crayon. And as you look at these crayons, I want you to think of yourself as an individual. We have different colors. Some crayons are new brand. Some crayons are bigger than some. Some crayons, they have different colors. They have different shade within color groups. I see a broken crayon. I see crayons without labels and titles. I see crayons that are very similar to others, and I see crayons that are absolutely way different color. I see some crayons that some of you may not even think are good crayons because they are broken. I want you to understand, I use this picture of a crayon, a box of crayon, because I want you to realize all of us have the ability to make color. All of us have the ability to really do well. But how we are utilized, how we are treated, how we are used is important. What can we learn from this box of crayon? And equity and diversity and inclusion and difference and identity have the same thing. We have to come to a place where we learn to appreciate and admire difference. We are in a space, many of us, where difference is something that is negative. Once something is different from what you are used to, immediately it is given a lower value, a lesser value. I want you to realize as a parent, this is something that you can talk about at home and correct. I want to repeat that. You as parents and community, you have the power to have these conversations at home and make correction to how your children see things. How do you, and remember, your children, they take a lot of messaging from home and they carry that to school. I'm telling you, as a classroom teacher for 25 Septembers, I want you to know the discussions you have at home, they are filtered in school in many ways, and any teacher will tell you that. My mama says, my dad says, my auntie said, or they would make a comment, and then you say, where did you hear that? My dad, my mom, my brother, my sister, my auntie, my grandma, my grandfather. So I want you to understand that the conversations you are having at home, the indications, the way you watch television, and the comments you make about people on television, how you see people, how you see difference, these things are filtered at home. Here are some questions I have for you parents. What lessons are we teaching our children about others? What assumptions do we hold about others? What messages do we give to our children about others? What language and vocabulary do we use at home to describe and speak of others? What emotions are shown or expressed when we discuss differences? Let me give you an example what that means. I have been a teacher for, like I said, for many years. And I will show, let's say somebody brings a certain kind of food to school. And you see food that is different. The average child at school, when you talk about difference of food, the simple response will be, wow, that's different. Or what is that? Curiosity is powerful. Teach your children how to be curious. Curiosity, I want you to listen to me carefully, parents. Curiosity is beautiful. Curiosity is, for me, critical pedagogy. Curiosity in how things work, in why you are so tall, in why your skin is so dark, in where you are from, why you speak like that, why do you eat that. I love curiosity. But the problem in our homes is that we don't go to curiosity oftentimes. We jump from curiosity to deficit. We jump we skip curiosity and we go to judgment. We skip curiosity and we go to deficit. And so when our kids come to school, instead of being curious, they go, wow, that looks yucky. That looks nasty. That looks disgusting. And as a school teacher, I'm telling you, we have heard these kinds of words many times describing something new, something different, something unknown when it comes to food. Disgusting. Why would we go to disgusting? Why wouldn't we go to just simply curious? So I want to ask you parents to encourage your child to be curious and teach them how to be curious. One of the powerful ways to be curious is learning how to ask good questions. That is something we actually teach in school as a skill, you know. Years ago when I used to teach comprehension skills, asking good question was part of the comprehension skills training. So you can get the required or the desired response. And so we have to ask ourselves, how are we having those conversations in our home? I move on, and as we talk today, so we have discussed the need for courageous conversations. And I want you to, when you leave here today, parents, I do not want you to leave here thinking courageous conversations are only about race, racism, war, anti-black racism, twist LGBTQIA plus issues, deficit, disability. Amazing, courageous conversations are about identity. They're also about respect. They're also about belonging. They're also about safety. They're also about admiration. They're also about affirmation. I tell you my next story. A little boy comes to school. He's from a European country. He comes to school. Toronto District School Board to be exact. Sorry, not Toronto District School Board. Another province to be exact. He comes to school. Little black girl is playing in his class, a classmate, and he says to her, "Your skin is dirty." She says to him, "My skin is not dirty. I am black." Comes the next time and he says the same thing. Recess, it's the same thing. Now it becomes a problem because it's no longer, it wasn't even a question. It wasn't curiosity. It was immediately going to a place of deficit and judgment. So the little girl goes home. She's crying. Of course, you know what's going to happen. Parents come to school. Other parents are called in. Superintendent gets involved. I get involved. I want you to listen to me carefully, parents and teachers. The first question and the most important question that was a part of that conversation was, what was the conversation with that little boy the first time he said it? We have to learn, as my grandmother, my mother would say, to nip something in the bud. We have to learn how to stop it. Let me give you a very, very, very clear example. I have been asked by more than one principal to come into a school to talk about racial slurs. I have been asked more than once to have conversations about racial slurs in schools. One of my questions to those principals and staff, I would say to them, how do you speak to your students about racial slurs? When it happened on the basketball court, when it happens in the ballet class, when it happens in the auditorium, at lunchtime, at recess, in the beginner school, outside in the car park, when you hear it, what is your response to any racial slur, any form of racial slur? What is your response? And I'm going to be very, very frank with you, because that's why you get me, because I'm going to have the frank conversation. This is what I do. 95% of the response I got from teachers, they were very weak response. Those response didn't say to a student, you ought not to do this. Those response weren't clear enough. They weren't forceful enough. They weren't intentional enough. They weren't deliberate enough. They weren't stopping it enough. We have to understand there are certain conversations, if you're going to call it courageous conversation, because that's what you call it, not just me, that's what you call it. If you're going to have courageous conversation, then you have to lead with courage. And that is our problem. Everybody wants to have a courageous conversation, but nobody wants to lead with courage. A part of courage in the classroom is the ways in which we correct. I want to repeat that because somebody needs to hear it. Somebody needs to hear it on a Thursday evening. The part of the courageous conversation is the manner in which we correct. My energy says I need to repeat it. A part of the courageous conversations in our classrooms is the ways in which, or are the ways in which we correct. Some of us, we are correcting in ways that the students are quiet, unsure. Was I wrong? I am not so sure. Is my teacher upset with me? I am not so sure. Let me make it very clear. When I did something wrong, and I was corrected by my parents, I knew I was doing something wrong. I knew something that my mom or my dad did not approve of. Their expression, their body language, the tone in their voice said to me, do not do this again. I am going to ask you parents, when you hear your children saying things that are wrong, how are you correcting your children? Home is the first classroom. I know you agree with me. I know you agree with me. But are we doing that? Are we demonstrating? Let me tell you my next, it's not a story, but let me tell you something very surprising that some of you may know, some of you may not know. There are many parents, I taught at a particular school for years. And I taught at private schools in the Bahamas. I taught at very amazing schools here in Toronto. And every now and then a parent would come to me and would say to me, Mr. Campbell, I am going away for a week. I am going to Paris. I'm going to Jamaica. I'm going to Cuba. I'm going to Las Vegas. I am going to Costa Rica. I'm going to Trinidad. I'm going to Finland. I'm going to Philippines. You get it. And they would say, we're going to take our children, the student, and we will love if you could give me work for a week. Listen to me carefully. I usually support parents, but I'm going to be frank with you. You could ask about my reputation at TDSB. I would say to parents, you really don't need much work from me. I said you have an opportunity that many people do not have. You get to travel to an entire new country, a new world, a new space. You get to sit on a plane for 5-6 hours with 200 different, 300, 400 different people. You have an opportunity to have conversations about the world with your child that I could never, ever, ever teach them in my classroom. I said to them, do not miss the opportunity to share with your child while you're on these trips about the world, the dynamics of the world, the difference in food, in culture. When your child says to you, Mom, why is that man talking like that? Why is he sounding like that? Why are they eating that? Why are they doing that? That is an amazing conversation. And if you say to me, Dr. Campbell, well, I really don't even have the answer myself. Well, here is where we use Google. Here's where we spend really good productive time online, because we are online, many of us anyhow. Here's where we spend actually good time and Google something and read something. And in your Googling and reading, you're teaching your child critical research skills as well, and showing them what is good, valuable resources and sources, because not everything online is good and valuable. You parent have to also let you know that there's a lot of garbage online. Did I use the word garbage in this event? Yes, I did. There is a lot of garbage online, and you have to say that. And when you use the word garbage and they say, Mom, Dad, or whatever, you have to say, this is garbage. And I don't want you have that in your system. The next point we want to talk about is how we evaluate our differences and our bias and our prejudice, and what it impacts, what it looks like. So we all have our bias and our prejudice, and we have to learn that things are different, and we see things different because of our different lenses. And I have to say this quickly, parents, because I taught at private schools where people boast that their children are learning global studies and their children are global citizens. Let me be very, very clear. If all you know and all you believe and all you respect and all you appreciate looks exactly like you and engage in the world exactly as how you engage, you are not global. You are absolutely not global. Global is about differences. Global is the ability to appreciate and the dynamics and difference we have around us. So if every single thing that you love, respect, cherish, give credit and value and dignity to looks just like what you believe in only, you are not global. You cannot be a global citizen when all you value is on your cul-de-sac. you cannot be. You have to open yourself to the world. Let me give you a beautiful example. Last year, myself and one of my great friends, we were in Asia. We went from Taiwan. We went from Taiwan to Thailand in Phuket. We went to Vietnam, Indonesia. Yes, I think Indonesia, right? No, Bali. But of course, Indonesia is Bali, right? I was so excited to see the difference in culture in Asia. Because a lot of us, we think everybody, once we see Asia, we think everybody's Chinese. We don't even value the time it takes to learn the difference. I value that. I was so excited to see the different foods. And matter of fact, let me tell you something. I like fried fish. I'm a fried fish kind of person. I like a good Jamaican escovitch fish. Escovitch fish. We have it in Jamaica. Some of you may have been to Jamaica and you have had it. I could taste it in my mouth. Mwah. Right? And let me tell you something. You know, we all think, you know, Jamaican fried fish is the best fried fish in the entire world. You know, some of us were like that. And I had fried fish in Costa Rica that I'm still thinking about the taste. I had fried fish in Vietnam that I'm still thinking about the taste. I had fried fish in Hong Kong that I'm still thinking about the taste. I had fried fish in Ghana that I'm still thinking about the taste and want some more. I want you to learn to open up yourself. And then I hear somebody saying to me, Dr. Campbell, well, what if you went to one of these countries and you didn't like their fried fish? That would be okay. That is absolutely okay. Because then I would say to you, I like fried fish here, but I don't like it how it's seasoned there. And that is okay. But I would never say to you, the fried fish there is disgusting. I would never say to you, the fried fish there is horrible. I would never say to you, I don't know what they are, but nobody in that entire country can fry fish. I would not say that to you. So I want you to understand the power and how we talk about others is important. And the last thing I want to share there on this agenda is your personal action. And let me take it to my next slide, one of my favorite slides. And I want you all to take pictures, parents, take pictures of this slide, and you can share it. I created this slide back in May 25th, 2023. When we talk about the many ways we need to act, sometimes I hear you, parents. Don't think I don't hear you. When a lot of us say, you know, I really want to make a change. I really want to be this. I really want to be this. I really want to do this, but I don't know how. I want you to realize as we get into the how part of the conversation, I want you to realize there are many ways we can act. There are many ways we can act when it comes to our learning, our unlearning, when it comes to being more inclusive, when it comes to creating more spaces of belonging, when it comes to being safer and creating safer spaces. There's so much we can teach. There's so much we can do. So I want to bring you to a place now. I'm going to share with you a few things quickly. And before we get into the actions, on the screen, you see a very popular picture online of equality, equity, and reality. I just want you to focus on a few things in the picture. I want you to focus on when you hear the word barriers. I know some parents, you hear we talking about barriers, and you kind of feel like, oh, here we go again talking about barriers to student and barriers to particular student, especially racialized kids, black and brown kids, LGBTQ kids, immigrant kids. When we talk about barriers, children with disability, children who are on the spectrum, barriers. I want you to look at a few things in this picture. The first one is the fence I want you to look at. And when you look at the fence, I want you to think about what are the things around us, in my community, in my school, that I feel may be preventing some children from seeing the game, from being their best. I could tell you, for those of you who would say there are certain conversations that should wait till students are 16 and they're 17 and they're in high school, I will tell you, and statistics and psychologists and researchers will tell you, it's way too late. When I was 6, I knew I was different. I was in grade 1 Miss Smyker class. I will never forget. I was in grade 1 Miss Smyker class at Independent City All-Age School. I knew I was different. But not just I knew I was different. So if you want to say to me, well, that was you, that's not my child. Well, I'm going to tell you what happened. When I knew I was different, then I knew something else because I was being teased. I was being called very nasty names at 6 by other 6-year-olds. I want to repeat that. At 6, I was being called very negative names, nasty names, names that people hear outside that are hurtful by fellow 6-year-old students. And remember, you're talking to someone who have been in classroom for 25 years. I can tell you a whole list of words that children have used in kindergarten and grade 1. And I guarantee you, as a parent, not one of you would approve of those words. But your children use them. Children use them at school. I want you to listen to me carefully and coming to you with a classroom lens. I'm not coming to you as this doctor from the University of Toronto who have no idea what's going on. I have been a classroom teacher, teach kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, you name it. Taught dancing for years, gone on camps for years. I've taken kids to many different countries. I've taken kids from the Bahamas to Jamaica, from Jamaica to Curacao to Cuba, from Bahamas to America. That's the kind of teacher you're talking to. I have been around your kids. I have been around children. I have listened to the conversation. I have heard the language. I have had to correct them. So I want you to understand that the power you have. Remember now, parents, don't you ever forget, my conversation tonight with you is about the power that you have. As a matter of fact, if we could even change the slide, I would change the topic and I would call the topic the power in parenting. Superintendent Julie, I would love that. The power in parenting when it comes to equity. Because I think a lot of parents don't realize how powerful you are. So as we talk about the fences and we talk about which child is not being seen, which child needs a block. What is that little child in the purple shirt? Why is he sad? Why is he not standing on a block? We could talk about that. But here's what we want to talk about. I want to talk about liberation. That's a very, very, very fancy word everybody's using these days when it comes to equity and inclusion and EDI and indigeneity, liberation. And you may say to me, Dr. Campbell, you can call me sir. That's me, Mr. Campbell. That is me still. How do I talk about liberation? And I'm going to leave it to you 2 words. Liberation at your level is going to be, what are the things you're going to say at home that are empowering to your child? Listen to me carefully. What is the language you're using at home? I love this. That is empowering to your child. And those same language, you're going to teach your child to use those words to other people, other students, so they could empower them. I love when I go on social media and I see children empowering children. Oh, I love it. There's a popular picture all over TikTok with this young boy playing basketball and he's just got his head down and his friend just come over him, hug him up and just put his hand like this to say, keep your chin up. Oh, I love it. Imagine the ways we can teach our children to empower others. I've seen many children done it. So it's not rare for me. So let me just give you credit now. Let me give you credit, parent. Parents, let me give you some credit. Because there are children I have seen all the time. They come to school and they empower each other. That comes from you. They didn't learn that in the school and they didn't learn it from me. They come to my class like that. They came from your home like that. There are children who are very much affirmed at home. They know they are loved, they are beautiful, they are cared for, they are amazing, they can be anything they want. They are affirmed at home. And those same children come to school and they affirm other children. I have seen it, I have heard, I could give you stories upon stories if we had the time. So when you empower your children, when you affirm your children, it is inside of them. They inculcate that. It's part of their natural energy. Like for me, part of my natural energy is to speak to people with a level of care. Part of my natural energy is the joy that I have, my laughter, the ways in which I see people and compliment people. I would compliment anybody. I don't need to know you to compliment you. I am a complimenter. That's not a word. I make up my word. I make up my words. Some of you don't know, but I create my own words every now and then. Ask yourself, when you embed that in your children, what do they do? So let's leave now with some steps. I'm going to leave you with a few reminders, and I put on the board, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 reminders, and I'm going to leave you, we have about 10 minutes on the clock to talk about 7 reminders. First one, engage in courageous conversations. I have that picture right now on the board of those children. And I want you to realize that your children do have the skills to have those conversations. And I said to you, when you empower them at home, they bring the empower. I've heard children say things like, my mom says you shouldn't say that word. Oh! When I hear those things at school, I am, yes. My mom says you shouldn't use that word. Immediately, before I could correct, before I could step in, another child steps in. How are we equipping our children at home? Equipping them for this world. And when I said this world, I mean this world. The world we see with the war, the hate, the homophobia, the Islamophobia, the anti-Semitism. This exact world I'm talking. How are we teaching them to navigate and walk through this world? That's a powerful one. How are we teaching our children to walk through this world? And I don't know why, but I keep on hearing this in my mind, and I have to say it. And parents, how are you, parent, learning how to walk through this world? Parents, I'm speaking to you. How are you learning and unlearning how to walk through this world? So I want us to think about that. The next one, as I said, these are the reminders. And remember, you have permission to take any picture of any one of my slides. You can take me on the side. It's no problem with that. The next one is affirm your children in who they are. Children who know themselves, who learn how to love themselves, who are empowered at home. It's the biggest tool. You know, let me tell you something. I say to parents a lot, I said, your job, one of your biggest tasks in a world like this today, is to ensure you affirm your children. Every single day before they go to that door, you let them know they are beautiful, they are amazing, they are fabulous, they are supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And if you think I'm exaggerating, just get to know me. I am not. You know, you need to be in my house when I am affirming myself, because my parents are gone. My parents are both deceased. But let me make it very clear to you. My dad and my mom affirmed me. You're looking at a little black boy who was affirmed. You're looking at a little black boy who went to school at 6 and hears some of those dirty words, thrown at me. And my dad would tell me I am a star. I wrote about this. So I'm not here to try to, just to impress you. It's in my book I published years ago. Daddy said I'm a star. And today you are listening to a star. I am a star. My dad says so. My mom said so. I have walked in that path. So when things are happening to me in my life today, every now and then I remember, Daddy said I'm a star. My niece in Edmonton reminded me just this week at lunch. She said, Daddy used to say, you are a star. How are you affirming your children? Because many parents, I want to tell you, your words of affirmation are more powerful than what's going on outside. The problem is your children are not hearing it often enough. You can't say nice things too much. The word I love you doesn't get to have an expiration. I wish I had someone every single morning to say to me, I love you. I wish I had someone in my life that every morning when I wake up at 6, somebody says to me, I love you. I wish I had that. So parents, that's your job. I want you to do that. Affirm. The next one is provide opportunities to learn about others. And they do so through books, through trips, to the museum. I love watching parents in the museum with their children and the kind of conversation they're having. Many of our children today think indigenous people of Canada are some people in history books, because that's how we talk about them, as if they are not here. Who is going to say to your children, indigenous people are all around us? There are indigenous doctors and indigenous teachers, indigenous parliamentarians, indigenous leaders, indigenous accountants, indigenous bakers, indigenous fashion model. Anybody see what I did there? Anybody see what I did there? I know you saw exactly what I did. Because too often we speak of others and we go straight to the deficit. We run straight to the deficit. So I want you to create those opportunities. The next one is speak about others with respect. I love this picture. I'm in love with this picture. I'm in love with this picture. But this picture is not new to me and it's not strange to me. I have taught in many schools like this, where my class is filled of kids who are different and come from all different spaces. And my job as an educator is to ensure my children speak about others with respect. I tell you a quick story, parents. I was teaching grade 1 a couple of years ago. I've told this story many times. I went to a school. I was new. This may be the second, third week of school. I'm teaching grade 1. I am teaching maths. I am using YouTube videos. I am living my best life because I love what I do and my students know that I love it and they could feel my energy. And I started to play some videos, and one particular video had a lady with a very beautiful Indian accent. And one little boy in the class was Indian, a number of Asian students, and the rest of the kids were white. They are my students. And the lady with the Indian accent on the YouTube video started to speak, and the kids all start to laugh, and the little Indian boy starts to cry. Immediately I swoop in. I got a teacher next door to, to take the little boy for me, to make sure he's okay. And I gathered my kids. I want you to listen to my choice of words. I gather on the carpet my students. Mr. Campbell loved all his children, all his students. And I want them to be amazing. I pull them to the carpet and I said to them, what is happening? And my kids, they get it. They said, sir, she sounds very funny. Another child said, she sounds weird. Another child says she used the S word. She sounds silly. And then another child said, another S word, she sounds stupid. We are talking about having courageous conversations. So here we have a group of kids who are amazing. They mean no harm. They mean nothing racist. And I'm going to repeat that. They mean nothing racist. What they know is that what is different, somehow they have learned that a person with a different accent is silly and weird and maybe stupid and something to be laughed at. immediately I get to working. And when you say I get to working, why are you saying, Mr. Campbell, you went on teaching your maths because you're such a good maths teacher? No, I went to working to make sure my grade 1 class understand the beauty and the power in difference and how amazing different accents are. And I went on YouTube and I started to Google and bring up all kinds of accent. Jamaican accent, man. Trinidad accent, Guyanese accent, Russian accent, Egyptian people, accent from, you name it, I was bringing in. French accent. You name it, I was bringing in the accent. And what I did was to say to my children, people from all over the world speak different, and we all have an accent, and we all speak different. Your teacher, Mr. Campbell, I am from Jamaica. Yeah, man, Mr. Campbell have a Jamaican accent, man. I could speak in English. I have Jamaican English, that's what I speak in, but I have a different accent. I also have my Jamaican dialect. So we got from accent to language. And we did that conversation in a very respectful manner. Seize opportunities to disrupt the bias, assumptions, and stereotypes. And if you look on the screen, on my slide, I am using books. These books are amazing. Many of us, like myself, didn't have these books when we were growing up, you know. Didn't have these books when we were growing up. We used to long for a book like this. I remember all the books I read, Nancy Drew, All the Boys, Enid Blyton, all these books, Bob's a Twin. Nobody looked like me. I want you to learn how to dispel biases, assumptions, and stereotypes by books. Many of our children believe when you hear the word Africa, it's something deficit because of narrative. How are we dispelling that? Let home be a place of learning and unlearning. Let home be a place of learning and unlearning. And my final slide, which is my favorite slide. Be an inclusive role model. As the parent, you be the teacher. Pandemic, many of you were had to realize that the home is still the first classroom. Let's remember, parents, that no matter what they learn at school, no matter what we do in the curriculum and do this and do that, I want you to remember, parent, how powerful you are. You are powerful. Your influence is powerful. I remember, as a teacher, one of the things we laugh about is when a child would say to us, my mom says, my dad says. Of course your mom says. Of course your dad says. Because what they say is so important and is so valuable. So thank you so much, parents, for listening. Thank you so much, community, for being here. I am honestly honored to be a part of your speaking series. I think we have 4 minutes on the clock for 1 or 2 questions. We can maybe take 2 questions in 4 minutes because I know exactly 7:30 you have to be somewhere else. But thank you so much, parent. And thank you for being here. I want to say that for an important reason, because so often when we have these sessions in our schools and the school put the effort in to have these conversations, parents do not show up. And I'm going to be very frank. And the ones who do not show up sometimes send the longest email to complain about the longest thing where you really could have been in this space to let us grow together. I am encouraging you, parents. This is your school. This is your board. This is your space to ask the question, to show up, to learn, to unlearn, and to engage. What a privilege. What a privilege to be in a space, in your home, in a good couch. I'm in a good couch with a padded thing at the back here. Sitting here, talking about inclusion. You and I are not hurting. We are not in a refugee camp. We are not in a space. That is a privilege that I want us to acknowledge. And how do we use that privilege? How do we use that power to spread joy and to spread happiness and word and belonging and respect to each other? I think I just use up one of the question time. Over to you, Sarah.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Wow. What an inspiring talk. Both impact and power that parents have.